Mad Bull 34 is a cop OVA series from the early 90s that's part Lethal Weapon, part New York City, part gratuity. Seriously, guys, there's so much nudity in this, it's going to make showgirls blush. And well, anime. It's got buddy cop aspects, it's part schlock, it's over the top.
Coffee and piss. Yep.
It's got wacky, zany characters and stories, and it's got a commentary that underlines what the world kind of saw and Japan saw America through the late 80s and early 90s. Welcome back to the anime Dropout. Today we're looking at Mad Bull 34. So we're going to look at a little bit of everything, kind of talk about what I liked and what I didn't, and go from there. The story. So we're going to jump right into the first episode. There are those 4 episodes. The first one introduces our characters and brings them together, and they kind of come to an understanding, where the last 3 are more revenge driven. There's some revenge component into the plot. And so the very first episode, so we meet Daizaburo. He's our rookie do-gooder, fresh out of the academy, ready to get out there and kick some ass and take some names. And he shows up at the 34th Precinct, where he's been assigned to. He meets the captain, and as he's walking into the office, he sees this huge cop just sleeping on the job, and he's like, fuck, I don't want to be partnered with this dude. Like, this guy's giving us all a bad name. Called it. Yeah, that's his partner, as we come to find out. That's Sleepy. That's our Mad Bull.
Got a name?
Around the precinct, I'm known as Mad Bull, but my real name is John Estes. Friends call me Sleepy.
And he's just this big, over-the-top, larger-than-life guy. Shoots first, asks questions later. Doesn't fuck around with his neighborhood.
That asshole's been pushing drugs in my precinct. I swear to God, I'm gonna fucking kill him.
And one of the points that it shows, or it brings up, is that, you know, there isn't really prostitution in other areas of the city, but there is in this precinct, in this little neighborhood. And that's actually by design. Mad Bull knows there's hookers, and he's tight with all of them. And he skims their money, kind of, keeps them in business, but he takes his cut. And Daisaburo's kind of tracking him and following him. He's like, yo, what's going on? And so that's where our main conflict is for the first episode. And it's more of a couple of sequences as opposed to an overarching plot of the episode. But it's good. There's a sequence where we see them working together, and they're running down a robbery sex pest gang, and they're undercover in drag or cross-dressing, I guess, wearing wigs and makeup and stuff, and that's pretty entertaining. and then there's a sequence where Daizaburo, who's fairly young, and I think he's inexperienced, Sleepy tries to hook him up, give him a little action with a harem of hookers. And Daisaburo's like, no, I'm saving myself for marriage, and he scares them all away. And then as Daisaburo's kind of investigating his partner a little bit, kind of trying to see, hey, what's what. He learns that Mad Bull is a total horn dog.
Wow, check out that chick!
And sleeps with everyone. But also, he's skimming the money, and all the prostitutes are like, you bastard! That's my cash, you son of a bitch.
Even bastard! Give me my fucking money back! You cocksucker, come back here, damn you! I earned that money, I'll give it back, you shit!
And he confronts one of the hookers. Her name's Lily, and she's like, well, it's actually kind of his money anyways, so I think it's just more of the, hey, you're cramping my style, but it's all good. And he sees him deposit that money in the bank, and he's all trying to be sly, and Mad Bull's like, get in the car, kid.
Oh! Stop hiding, kid, and get back in the car.
Like you're not fooling anybody. And it's at this time that Lily is about to go out on a stroll, if you will. Work the street, and this big hulking muscle massive dude shows up, and he spoke of the cigar, and he's got this rose tattoo, and he's mean mamma jamma. And he's like, hey, it's been a long time. And they bang. And I don't remember this guy's name. He's not really important, other than the fact that he's like, I'm here to he wants to take over the neighborhood and run the hookers. You know, he wants to be the new pimp on the block. He's like, I got to take out this Mad Bull. And that's where the rest of the episode kind of comes together. And that he tries to off Mad Bull and therefore dies a burrow. He cuts like their brakes, and
That's him. I'd know his ugly face anywhere.
Let's follow him.
they end up getting to this huge showdown in a moving train, you know, in like the subway. And like every one of these episodes, Mad Bull gets some kind of shot or injured. This one, like, he ends up like throwing the antagonist or whatever his name is out. Mr. Hulk throws him out from this moving train and like shoots him, and he just like explodes in this sea of blood. It's ridiculous. And he's lying up in the hospital from being shot and whatever from their showdown. And that's where Diceboro really kind of comes into learning about Sleepy and how he operates, and learning that he's really, for being a kind of this violent, taking it up to 11 kind of personality, he's really a lovable giant with a huge heart. And, you know, he takes care of his girls. He takes care of those in his neighborhood, and he really believes in you know, keeping drugs and keeping the neighborhood safe. And that money that he ends up skimming, he ends up donating it to like a crisis center for victims of like sexual assault, and giving it back into the community. So that episode ends, and they have this understanding, and they're able to move forward and be partners. The second episode is our first revenge episode. This is where things kind of really go off the rails, get zany and wacky, and it just buku. Just let's take it up to 11. The first episode, or the second one, excuse me, follows. They're doing a drug bust, and they've chased this guy down into the park, and some blondie gets into the mix. I think she's taken hostage, or she throws herself into the situation, and turns out she's a lady detective. Her name is Perrin. She's from Queens. She shoots the drug guy, and she's coming back to the 34th precinct, and she's working this drug case. And Mad Bull and Diceboro are like, cool, let's rock and roll. The antagonist is this like gangster who is long thought dead. He wants revenge on Perrin for screwing him over in his life. And he's just like this. He's introduced as this really weird looking Bond villain. He's in this wheelchair, and he's got like half a metal face and super powerful, and it's just ridiculous. And he's leading like this drug operation. The episode's called The Manhattan Connection, much like the French Connection. And in the mix, we have this 3D cop, and he just looks, just from the character art and the animation and how he's presented, he's just such a skeeve. It's such a, you could just tell, like, this is a crooked cop. He's just a bastard. And yeah, the plot involves Perrin and the two heroes getting to the bottom of this Bond villain's drug revenge plot. It's, I think in itself, it's probably the weakest overall episode, but it's got some really great points, really great sequences. They're doing a stakeout early in the episode. They're doing a stakeout. It's Diceboro and Sleepy up on a water tower, and then you have the crooked cop and Perrin down in a car. And one of the things that we'll kind of talk about a little bit later on is the over-the-top quality to the show, and that is not just the violence but also the sex. And I guess Japan at the time viewed every criminal or lowlife being very pervy sex pest.
I think people are perverts. I've maintained that. That's the foundation.
And so like he's the crooked cop's down there, and he like ends up feeling up Perrin, which I think was kind of unnecessary, but whatever. One of the gangster stereotypes is they're all, they'll show up, the gangsters, to do this drug buy. They're all wearing suits and they got the fedora hats, kind of very 30s Al Capone gangsters. It's actually kind of funny. And they get into this huge shootout, and they're shooting up at the water tower, and Sleepy turns over and he gets like shot like 6 times in the ass, and he's like crawling out of the way, and you just see like these 6 fountains coming out of his butt. It's actually really funny. They're getting to the shootout, and he pulls down his pants, and there's like this bushel of grenades, and they're throwing them, and it's ridiculous. But during the sequence, they come to learn about the crooked cop and who's being a total bastard. They continue to investigate, and they kind of continue to link it all back to the Bond villain. And there's a showdown, and the Bond villain gets killed. And it's, like I said, it's the weakest one. And before the showdown, Diceboro is just taking an absolute beating. They're beating the shit out of this dude. And he's just taking punch after punch. And after Mad Bull kills everyone and the hero saved the day, Diceboro's laying in the hospital, and he's in this coma. And for some insane reason, Mad Bull's like, hey, Perrin, what might wake him up and, make his dream come true, especially if he's going to die, is if you marry him. What? Like, how? What? Okay.
What the fuck?
Our third episode, it's called Charging Jackie. And this one kind of features this one's kind of probably the most 80s action movie plot. It's completely bonkers in a good way. The episode starts with this rich criminal type being let go. He was charged with rape and murder. Kind of our fearless leader's shtick, if you will. And he's being hounded by this tenacious reporter, our titular Jackie. And she's just all up in his grill. And we have this Richie Rich criminal type. His henchman is this two-faced looking motherfucker. And he's like, we gotta whack this reporter. And so he gets his henchman to take care of it.
If the current indifference continues, we can only assume someone is pulling strings behind the scenes for their own advantage.
Get rid of him.
The henchman puts a hit out with like this cult of assassins. It's really weird. He goes to like this really dingy shithole, like out in Red Hook or wherever. And it's just this dingy shithole, and there's like all these regular people, but they're part of this cult of assassins. And they get hired to take out the reporter. At the same time, coincidentally, this reporter is old friends with Perrin, so they're playing catch up, and the detective's like, "Yo, you're asking for trouble. You're asking to get hurt." And Diceboro and Sleepy are like, "Yo,
I think I'm gonna have to protect this girl myself."
there's starting to be attempts on our life," and this is where it gets a little wild. There's a sequence where they get in the news van, and they're driving away from this report or whatever. They're driving away from this report or whatever, and 2 of these assassins show up they're like on a motorbike. They're chasing down the van. They're chasing down the van, and they don't shoot the tire. They don't do anything like that, but they pull out a chainsaw and they like go at the tires, which I think is really, really hilarious and different. And they drive the van off the road. They drive Diceboro off the road. they're like shooting at the cop car, and he rips off the roof of his car. He's like, "Motherfucker!" And he just starts shooting, and it's ridiculous. Now it's personal for the assassins because they killed 2 of the assassins, and so the creepy assassin lead sends his femme fatales to do the job, and they set up this ruse to lure Jackie into a trap where I think like down in the alley they have 2 or 3 of the femme fatales, and they're gonna fuck her up. And of course Diceboro's there. And Diceboro keeps saving her, and like especially after saving her the first time, she's like, "This is the man I want to marry," and it kind of creates this romantic subplot between Perrin and Jackie and Diceboro. So he's there, and Sleepy and Diceboro foil the femme fatale, and the lead femme fatale is just this mean kind of bitch who just refuses to die, and eventually kill her. And now it's really on for the assassins. Like, nah, this aggression won't stand, man. Like, now it's personal. But that's where things get really weird, because then they like cut their arms and they make like this blood-sucking Captain Planet with our powers combined. It's really fucking weird. Anyways, so now we have like these different factions in play. You got the assassins, you got the Richie Rich criminal, and then you have our heroes. And it all culminates in this huge over-the-top showdown at the Richie Rich's estate. So they go to rearrest this guy, confront him.
Hey, Diceboro, where do you think you're going? We got to arrest this son of a bitch.
Hey, fuck off, Sleepy. There's enough lead out there to cover a church roof.
And it's this huge shootout, very, very like Schwarzenegger 80s, Rambo, just all of it taken up to 11.
Jesus, it's them again!
And that's when the assassins go all out. They all show up. At one point, the head assassin dude shows up in like this armored tank or APC. Oh, so that's where we're going with this. Never mind, no one's driving the tank. Like Sleepy like lifts it up. And it like blows up, and he comes walking out, and he's like, his clothes are all stripped and bloodied, and our 3 other heroes are like lost part of their clothes, and it's just this huge showdown and fiery explosion finale. It's great. It's probably my favorite episode. That brings us to our last episode, and the last episode is totally different from the previous episode, where this one has a darker streak to it. It does have that schlock. I mean, it's got Predator, for God's sake. It's got a darker plot. It's got deeper character plot lines, and we get to learn more about Sleepy's background and his past, which I think is a really interesting way of rounding out that last episode of the series. So here's how this one goes. There's a killer out there killing cops, and we come to learn that it's this Predator Green Goblin mix with like some of Spider-Man's lizard villain. No, not you gooba fuck. That one. We think it's this elite assassin. He's out killing cops left and right. And he's got like these Predator blades, complete with lightsaber sounds. And we come to find out it's actually a chick who has ties to Sleepy's past and is the brother of Sleepy's old partner. And there's some mystery around how his partner died, and she's out for revenge. Through twists and turns of the events, there's like this fatal attraction component going to the plot where like her and Sleepy shack up, and they're trying to find closure in like this her pain and anguish, and it culminates in the showdown, and she ends up dying, and that's where the series leaves off. Is him walking away, and he's kind of just done. He's carrying her, and that's where we leave our character. And so that's our 4 episodes. Overall, like I said, it's very unique, very different. Each episode stands out amongst the rest. And unlike my previous episode on Cyber City Owedo 808, where it kind of focused on one character with the other 2 for each episode. And so we only really got one episode per character. This one, we're actually given some characterization with our two protagonists, our heroes, from the very get. So we know about what their motivations are and who they are as people and their values. I really wanted more episodes with these characters in their adventures in New York. And the way that it leaves off, it's very open-ended, there's not a lot of closure. And that's what you get with these short OVA series. It's just these little short story adventures. One of the things that that stuck out to me through these episodes that I mentioned quite a bit throughout all of this is that over-the-top quality. And in some areas it really works for the series and its tone and what it's doing. And I understand why they're doing what they're doing. It gets to a point where it also takes away from the story and kind of pulls me out, for me anyways. And I think that's probably one of my biggest complaints about these 4 episodes. The over-the-top violence and gore, like I said, that fits the tone and what it is. But the over-the-top sex, like, it gets to a point, and like nudity, like we're shown boobs in every episode. And it kind of, for the first episode, it fit the story, it made sense, it fit the character. And then each of the next episodes, it's there to be there. It's not necessary. In the last 2 episodes, throughout the whole series, but the last 2 episodes, like, there's just scenes of, like, a scene just to be there of Mad Bull sleeping with some chick. And Diceboro's just out there hanging out, like, waiting for him to get done. It's some partnership. Yeah, it gets kind of like, why is this here? Like, what is this adding to the story? Like, yes, we know Mad Bull is a total horn dog, and that's part of his character. It reminded me a lot of how things were kind of going into the 2000s and the 2010s, where cinema in itself in America was really pushing the envelope, and with things like torture porn and the Saw and other movies, where it was just there for shock value or just there to be there. And that's what it made me think of when I was watching these episodes, is with some of that stuff. But I think that also speaks, that whole taking everything up to 11 also speaks to, I think, that commentary of where America was, and I think how foreign powers or foreign artists viewed American culture, and going out of the 80s, throughout the 80s, and then this being done in the early 90s. Like, that's when it was really taking everything to the extreme with your Predator, your Commando. Die Hard just came out, and you have these action movies of muscular testosterone in the 80s, and also pushing the envelope with, like, erotic thrillers like Fatal Attraction. And Basic Instinct, I think, was coming out at this time. So American culture at that time, coming out of the Reagan era, and all the Cold War shenanigans, I can imagine being someone outside of America getting their viewpoint in. And yeah, everything is just so, like, cartoony in terms of how ridiculous and over the top, and everything is gratuitous in that era. And I think to a degree it toned itself down a bit into the 90s. But that's in the 80s is really when these big blockbusters pushed the envelope on what they could or couldn't show, what they could get away with, and it's part of what gives that era the charm in terms of culture. Like, those movies you couldn't necessarily get away with today and have the impact that it had. And so I think having that over the top, while parts of it were unnecessary, I do understand and can kind of see that viewpoint of the outside looking in to America's culture, and it fits with that. It fits with that to a T. I think the last thing I want to talk about is the execution, the artwork, the dub, the music, the whole, how it all puts together. And these 4 episodes are executed perfectly. The animation is phenomenal. Again, this is back in a day where it was all done by hand, which I think is just it's astounding. It's mind-blowing. Some of the things that they had to put together, coupled with the establishing background shots and just the paintings of buildings and how they framed the viewpoint, the camera, if you will, framed that, and it's really great shots. It kind of reminded me, I don't know, with the 90s looking sedan, it kind of gave me some Law and Order vibes a little bit, just a little bit, but it really kind of captured that essence of New York. And I thought that was kind of cool. And the musical choice, it's just really well put together for the time period. And I love during the 90s, during that period of anime, they always got like some kind of guitar. And so the intro song, it's just like this little blurb, and it shows the Mad Bull title card. But it reminds me so much, and it's so much in the vein of Trigun in terms of that guitar riff. And I love that. Yeah, there's a lot to like about these 4 episodes. The characters are great. They're fleshed out to the point where it's like, okay, I'm excited to see where the next one goes and where they're going with it. To the point where one of my complaints is just how it leaves off, which is very open-ended with no closure. And it's a fun four-part anime. You know, you could sit down and watch it, and I think they're like 45 minutes an episode, so you could sit down in an afternoon and watch them in like 3 hours. Very entertaining. Yeah, I would give this like an 8.5 or 9 out of 10. Definitely recommend it. You can find the edited version on YouTube. I got mine through the Internet Archive. I'll put the links down in the description. And yeah, if you want to go check out some old anime, go check this out. Adios.